the weight of legacy is heavy, but on that warm afternoon in Benin City, it felt like a crown, a tight string of polished, blood-red coral beads. The sacred ivy was adjusted gently around the smooth, youthful neck. The camera of life focused closely on those beads before panning up to reveal 18-year-old Adesuwa. She was a vision of untamed, radiant innocence. Her hair had been sculpted into the traditional okuku, a high, majestic crown-like bridal hairstyle that made her look less like a modern bride and more like an ancient Bini deity stepping out of a myth. The room around her was a vibrant chaos of celebration. Women chattered in rapid, musical waves of Bini and English. The air was thick with the scent of traditional dusting powders, and from the courtyard outside, the deep, resonant thumping of Edo cultural drums vibrated through the floorboards. Standing directly behind Adesuwa was her mother. Mama Adesuwa, a fiercely protective prayer warrior carrying the timeless grace of a true Edo matriarch, tied a heavy, rich velvet wrapper around her daughter's waist. Mama's hands, usually so steady, shook with a fragile mixture of maternal joy and sudden anxiety. Adesuwa, my daughter. Look at me, Mama said, her voice dropping to a soft, emotional register. Adesuwa turned her head, her eyes sparkling with youthful optimism as she caught her mother's gaze through the reflection of a framed mirror. You are young, yes, Mama continued, her eyes searching her daughter's face. But your steps are ordered by God. Egosa is a good man from a respectable Benin family. But remember, marriage is not a playground. When the wind blows, let Christ be the rock you hold on to. Hearken to your husband. Here, Adesuwa smiled shyly, instinctively kneeling slightly in a traditional gesture of deep respect. I hear, Mama. Egosa loves me, and I love him. God will bless our home. Relief and a profound spiritual gravity washed over the older woman. Mama Adesuwa placed her palm gently upon her daughter's woven hair crown, closing her eyes to whisper a fervent, desperate prayer into the atmosphere. I you can, the mother you shall become. She breathed. No weapon formed against your youth shall prosper. Amen. The word dissolved into a blur of sound and golden light. Outside, upbeat, celebratory Edo high life music blasted through massive speakers, making the very air throb. The crowd erupted into a deafening cheer as the double doors of the reception hall swung open. Moving in slow motion through a sea of adoring faces, Adesuwa and 22-year-old Egosa danced their way into the room. Egosa looked entirely regal, dressed in a flowing, snow-white traditional robe adorned with heavy coral links. He was tall, handsome, and completely captivated. He literally could not take his eyes off his young bride. As they swayed to the rhythm, guests swarmed them, raining a continuous shower of crisp naira notes over their heads. The world felt boundless, rich, and secure. Egosa leaned down, his lips brushing against Adesuwa's ear as he spoke over the booming bass of the music. You are the most beautiful woman in the whole of Edo Kingdom today, he whispered fiercely. I will take care of you, Adesuwa. I swear it before God and man. Adesuwa threw her head back and laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated bliss. At that moment, the future was a promise wrapped in gold. ###Patri, the shuttering of light. 5 years pass in the span of a single breath. The vibrant, sun-drenched reds and golds of the wedding day vanished, replaced by the muted, cozy, yet distinctly modest reality of a young family's living room in Benin City. The atmosphere was no longer grand, it was domestic and quiet. In the corner of the parlor, 2 small children, a boy of 4 and a girl of 2, lay fast asleep, their tiny chests rising and falling on a small foam mattress. Adesuwa, now 23, possessed a beauty that had matured into something deeper, though she still carried that striking radiance. She hummed a soft Christian hymn to keep the silence at bay as she set 2 covered ceramic plates of pounded yam and rich, yellow owo soup on the dining table. Finishing, she wiped her hands on her wrapper and glanced anxiously at the wall clock, 10:45 p.m. She let out a heavy sigh, looking toward the front door. The exhaustion of motherhood clashed with a growing sense of dread in her chest. Egosa, where are you? She whispered to herself, her voice echoing faintly in the quiet room. This traffic from the construction site shouldn't take this long now. Suddenly, the silence was shattered, the front door was violently kicked open with a loud, jarring bam. The peaceful environment died instantly, replaced by a suffocating, low, ominous silence that seemed to vibrate in the walls. Egosa stood in the doorway. But it was not the Egosa she knew. His corporate button-down shirt was badly torn at the collar, hanging loosely off his frame. His eyes were wide, completely bloodshot, and rolling frantically in their sockets like a trapped animal. He was sweating profusely, his chest heaving as he panted in ragged, shallow gasps. Adesewa gasped, her hands flying instinctively to her chest as she rushed toward him. "My choice. Obokian. Welcome." She stammered, frantically switching between Bini and English. "Jesus, what happened to you? Did you enter a fight? Why are you breathing like this?" Egosa didn't look at her. He couldn't. His gaze sliced right through her, staring wildly at the empty corners of the ceiling as if watching something invisible crawl across the plaster. He began to mutter rapidly under his breath, a terrifying, rhythmic drone. "They are following me," he whispered frantically, his voice cracking. "The shadows, they said the blood is not enough. They are in the car. They are in the walls." "Egosa. Who is following you?" Terribly confused and utterly terrified, Adesewa reached out, her fingers trembling as she touched his bare arm. "Look at me, it's me. Adesewa. Your wife." The moment her skin brushed his, Egosa snapped. With a burst of frantic, unnatural strength, he violently shoved her away. Adesewa lost her footing, crashing hard into the dining table. The heavy ceramic plates went flying, smashing into pieces on the tiled floor as the yellow owo soup splattered everywhere. Instantly, the children jolted awake. Terrified by the noise, they began to scream and cry in absolute horror from their mattress in the corner. Egosa gripped his head with both hands, tilting his face toward the ceiling, and screamed. It was a primal, inhuman sound that tore from his throat. In a frenzy of panic, he began to tear at his own clothes, ripping the remnants of his shirt completely off his body, exposing his bare chest to the cold night air filtering through the open door. "Oga Kayan," he shrieked in Bini. "They are coming. The fires are burning. Leave me alone. Leave my head alone." Before Adesewa could even process the words, Egosa lunged forward and began to violently smash his own forehead against the concrete wall of the parlor. Thud. Thud. A dark trickle of blood immediately began to ooze from his skin, running down his face. Adesewa scrambled backward on the floor in absolute horror, her hands slipping in the spilled soup and broken ceramic shards. She clawed her way over to the mattress, dragging her two screaming, terrified children into her arms. She backed into the furthest corner of the room, curling her body over theirs to protect them. From a bird's-eye view, the scene was a portrait of sudden, absolute ruin. In the corner sat a young mother, clutching her babies and weeping in blinding terror. And in the foreground, completely blurred by his own madness, the man who had promised to protect her was systematically tearing his mind and his home to pieces. "Help. O God of heaven, help me." Adesewa screamed, tears blinding her sight as the nightmare consumed her reality. "What is this? Egosa. Help." And then, the world faded into an unforgiving, silent black.